Hey everyone, today I'm going to do a sketchbook challenge where I'll be drawing using only one color. And that color is the gorgeous green, and I have so many green markers here. I didn't even fit them all in this jar, and I couldn't even fit all of the colored pencils in here either. So I'll be using colored pencils later, but let's pour out all of our markers first because it's so silly and fun to do. And I'm going to be drawing with this erasable colored pencil. I have all of the colors. I've been using them for all of these videos so far. So let's do a sketch. I think I'm going to continue on with the theme of just like doing portraits. I did a portrait in my last one, which was blue. And I just love drawing portraits and people and faces and cool hair and accessories. So this person actually had like the brightest pink hair I've ever seen, so let's make that green. And they also had these really cool glasses, and I've been really into drawing glasses a lot lately. I am a glasses wearer. Glasses seemed like such a difficult thing to draw for a while. When you do enough self-portraits while wearing glasses, you kind of get used to drawing glasses. And I had to redo the proportions a little bit a couple of times because I just drew like the jawline a little too off at first, so I had to change that, and I needed more green things for the background, so of course I'm gonna add some clovers. And if you guys would like to hold my artwork in your hand or have it in your room, you can join my wallpaper club to get digital downloads of wallpapers. The desktop wallpaper is apples, and the phone wallpapers are stamps and all things fall. If you want to join my wallpaper club, the link is in the description of all my videos. Please check it out, and let's get back to the video. Okay, now that the sketch is done, it's time for the super fun part, which is coloring it in. But first, I gotta make sure I know what greens I am grabbing while I'm doing this. So I'm going to pay attention to be looking at my little swatch sheets for this, but I'm going to start doing the skin tone with the super lime green marker because they had a light skin tone, and I want to make sure I start with that so that I can add lots of shadows and things on top of this color. I also left some spots blank, like the eyes, and there was a little bit of a nose highlight on their face so that those are white later on. And then I got started on doing some of the shadows. I have this nice olive green here. I'm sort of like doing the line art for my sketch so that those shadows really pop. They had dimples and they were smiling, so I really wanted to make sure I got those parts in there so that you can see their facial expressions. And then I just sort of kept going with drawing in that line art a bit and just using the same marker for some more shadows and doing their eyebrows. They had pink eyebrows to match their hair, but this is a green challenge, so everything is going to be green. And I'm just using that same color pretty much all around the face. And then I got started coloring the hair with another beautiful dark green. I just really been into green a lot lately. I think it's more like my love for nature and like grass and leaves and plants, and of course clovers, which are all green things. And I also definitely fell in love with this green sweater that my partner has, and I basically kind of stole it, so now it's our green sweater, but it's kind of my green sweater. And I just fell in love with the color green lately, and I was just so excited to do this challenge. And I also realized how many green markers that I had, and like you saw, there is a lot. There is like so many green alcohol markers, and I have a couple of green markers from other things. And since I was using this dark green, I had to make sure it wasn't bleeding through the previous page. And by the way, this is the last page of this sketchbook, and it was just like a fun end to the sketchbook because I love doing this challenge. I love the color green, and I was just also so excited to finish this sketchbook. This is another sketchbook that I finished in only 3 months, and I'm just so excited to start more sketchbooks. I actually have 2 new sketchbooks that I'm starting soon. It's just been like my most colorful sketchbook yet, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. That'll be in one of my next upcoming videos. And back to this drawing here, I just did the glasses, arms, and all of the eye details with that dark green. And believe it or not, there's an even darker green that I'll be using after this. And then I used one of my paint markers, which was this nice bright green for the glasses, and then I'm going back to that color that I used for their skin to do some more of those shadows in some of the face. And then I thought I could use my highlighter to do the nose highlights, but it just completely covered that little white spot that I left. So I realized that I would have to incorporate using white later on, but then I was just like, oh, let's try to make it look intentional. So I kind of like hid it a little bit. You kind of can't tell. It just kind of looks like their nose is even smaller. But oh well, I eventually fixed it in the end. And then they had some beautiful lip makeup on, so I did that. I think it's a little darker than the actual reference photo, but that's fine. It's a drawing. It doesn't have to be exact. I do definitely thrive for drawing like semi-realistic things or semi-realistic faces. That's sort of my art style in like the actual genre of like art styles, but really I just kind of draw whatever I feel like. That's why a lot of my drawings don't always look the same. I feel like my portraits are probably the thing that stay the same because it's, you know, drawing faces. And back to this drawing, I'm using that in even darker green, like I mentioned, for their shirt. They're wearing a black shirt, and since I will not be using black for these drawings, I am using a super dark green to replace black. And then I was doing a bunch of shadows to just make the details on the hair pop. And after some of the darker shadows in the hair, I realized that I didn't have a lot of highlights in here, so I tried using the same color that I did for the glasses, one of my acrylic paint markers, but it was just not light enough to match like what real highlights usually look like, which are definitely more white. And I think I should have left more blank spots in the beginning of the drawing using that lime green color that I did for the skin tone. And so it doesn't look super perfect that I, you know, expect my standard to be for drawing hair, because I love drawing hair. And so I was like, oh, I mean, I'll try to fix it with white, but white isn't always the like solution. Like, never mix paints with white because it completely dulls it out. You know, you gotta mix it with a like sort of basically the opposite color in the color wheel, or sometimes yellow or even pink to like make that color lighter. I have like a bunch of like paint tips in some of my painting videos, but I just kept using that green for other things. I tried to do their piercings, which were silver but don't have a silver green color, so I just used that same green. And then also for the clovers, and then I did a little bit of details in the clovers, not too much but enough so that they weren't just a single color. And then I did the background with a color that almost looks exactly like the skin tone color, this like super light, this like lovely bright light green. And then I got my colored pencils out because I realized I didn't even use any, and I did some more details in the hair. I used this dark like forest green just to really like make the shapes of like the actual like strands of hair pop a little bit more. And then I used a white colored pencil and a white acrylic paint marker to do some of the white highlights that I desperately needed in this drawing, which were some of those spots that I missed when I was drawing all the skin tones and the hair, which just like adding little pops of light to their face to match what their makeup was and where like the highlights on their face were, and to make those piercings actually look like piercings and not just like little blobs on their face. And like I said, the white didn't really make the hair highlights pop as much, but I just continued to use it anyway and did like the little white parts in these clovers. And then I felt like a genius when I did this. I've been kind of incorporating like spirals into my drawings, and there are spirals basically all over my September wallpapers, and I was like, it would be so fun to do spirals as like the border of this drawing. And so that's basically the background. Since I don't really draw backgrounds that much, it's definitely a thing I am like hiding from, is like drawing backgrounds, because it can be really difficult to do. So sometimes drawing a bunch of shapes back there kind of like hides the deal, kind of hides the fact that there wasn't a background altogether. And then I just did some little fixings around with some dark greens, because there wasn't really that many dark greens. And here is the final drawing. But wait, I actually still needed some more dark shadows, so I cleaned that up a little bit in a moment with that same dark green. I should have just waited, but I was just so excited to show you guys the final drawing, because I was having so much fun doing this process. I love green, I love doing this challenge, and if you're wondering, before you guys request what color should be next, it's going to be yellow. I'm going purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, and then ending on pink. And maybe if there's some other colors in between that I should do, let me know. But here's the final drawing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for enjoying the sketchbook challenge series. I'm absolutely loving it. Let me know what other series I should do next, and stay tuned for Sketchbook Tour. See you next time. Like and subscribe. Bye!